Welcome.
The Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community is a regulatory science initiative that aims to facilitate innovations in pathology, as well as advance safety and effectiveness evaluation. The PIcc Collaborative Community aims to harmonize approaches to speed delivery to patients through collaboration in the pre-competitive space. The PICC is open to all stakeholders, public or private, including but not limited to academia, industry, healthcare providers, patients, and advocacy groups. Meetings of this kind are an example of lawful activity under federal antitrust law, because the focus of the meeting is on government action or policy, including the industry's responses or positions taken with respect thereto. However, antitrust monitoring is needed for companies' own protection, since they are direct competitors meeting together. These meetings need to stay within protected subject matters and need to be monitored so that they do not stray off into inappropriate areas, such as pricing and price terms, sales and service territories for particular products, customers and customer territories, each company's individual decisions regarding selection of suppliers or customers, marketing plans and especially future marketing plans or new product offerings, other proprietary or competitively sensitive information. Today's meeting will follow the written agenda, and there will be no discussion of pricing or other prohibited topics. If the discussion veers into those topics, we will terminate the discussion. If you have any questions or concerns about the propriety of a discussion, please raise it immediately, and we will take a break to determine how best to proceed. The Medical Device Innovation Consortium acts as the formal convener, and we will follow their conflict of interest policy. For additional information, we defer to our Code of Conduct and our website, www.pathologyinnovationcc.org. We look forward to moving the field forward.
People presenting today, and I want to get started right away. Great seeing everyone. We start with some FDA updates. One element here that I thought is a great resource, of course, related to the Freedom of Information Act, is a web resource on how to actually get records from CDRH, which might be interesting, and also the exemptions from that rule are mentioned here, just as a tool. If you don't know how to do this, that might be helpful. The second is an event happening, I think, if I recall correctly, just right after Labor Day. Yeah, it says here September 4th. Great. This is regulatory do's and don'ts, tips from the FDA. It's, like a 4-hour jointly organized webinar. I think it's only virtual. And you see here, this is by Cyber, Cider, and CDRH. And this is mostly for, I think, small businesses and how to start and how to think the target audience they mentioned is entrepreneurs. But I believe that there's probably very useful information on how to interact with the agency, etc. One webinar that I believe this audience very likely have seen already is coming up. It's more towards the end of September, but I think this is probably going to be very well attended. It's 1 hour, but we hope to receive some clarifications on so-called labeling requirements for IVDs, including LDTs, as you see here with this beautiful, in these parentheses of commas, under the new rules. So this is definitely of interest, especially how to label and what to label, etc. So this will provide, hopefully, an interesting resource. I've checked, last time I checked, there were no materials there. Usually they're posted after the webinar, but I heard the rumor that there might be some materials coming up shortly for preparation and for submission of questions. And then one element here that was, I think, that just came out a bit earlier this month, which is a drug approval. But one of the interesting things here is this is for metastatic synovial sarcoma, which is, of course, a largely morphologic and molecular diagnosis for a specific subtype of HLA subsets of patients. So this is a very interesting novel approach of a subsetting of patients by morphology as well as genotyping. So I thought of sharing that. Of course, you can read a lot more details. Now, interestingly, there's a lot of, let's call it legislative updates, or we could call this actually updates from DC, which is probably more appropriate. Can I just ask you to mute yourself because I have some sort of weird echo in here, or maybe Noor, you can do this as being in control. So one thing that surfaced here is a new version of the Valid Act. You see here, this is the same abbreviation, which is very complicated. So IVCT is in vitro clinical test, and then the Verifying Accurate Leading Edge IVCT Development Act. So that stands for Valid. And this is the new version. So this is the Valid Act of 2024. Presented or proposed by Bouchon and DeJet as before. The review process should be tailored. That's one of the key elements. There's a so-called new tech cert pathway that we discussed before. There's some nuances that are different, and the Valid Act proposes some exemptions from pre-market review. And I haven't gone through it in detail, and this is the discussion draft. So I presume there are some people on this call that might know a little bit more. So maybe I open it up for like maybe a brief discussion, and I don't know if anyone knows anything more. I haven't had a chance to read through and study this in detail, but does anyone know anything?
Specific about more information about TechCert, Joe? Is that what you're talking
You know,
about?
or just in general about how this came about, and you know what, I'm sure you know some more of the inside, or anyone else.
Yes, I mean, the Valid Act discussion draft started circulating in, I think 2017 or 2018, went through a number of iterations and came very close to passing in 2022, but ultimately didn't make it into the end of the year omnibus. And so it has been reintroduced in the House, not in the Senate. DeGette and Bouchon are kind of the two primary drivers of this. And they have indicated they are open to making some tweaks to the bill. And that's kind of where it's at. I think the probability of passage this year is likely low, but maybe it'll get some more traction next year. Specific to TechCert, I think that is one of the best concepts in the Valid Act. Essentially, a laboratory could essentially submit an exemplar test validation packet to FDA along with validation protocol and some information about their quality system. FDA would review it and then grant technology certification to that lab for, let's say, mass spec testing. Then that laboratory could introduce new modifications to existing tests and not have to submit them to the FDA.
I don't know if I'm on mute or not. I think I am.
So it's kind of a win-win for both labs and the agency. The agency is to review these tests to ensure that they are high quality. It's kind of a center of excellence model. And it's a huge win for labs because after that one submission, you wouldn't need to submit for that particular technology any longer.
Thank you. Yeah, I also was a big fan of the TechCert program or pathway. I haven't read this discussion draft if they specify it. You know, the technology definition is tricky. And then, of course, you know, what tech certification would enable and what would be within and without the tech cert is, of course, an area of content. But I agree that that's probably the best concept. So maybe at some point we can discuss this in a smaller group, because you know there's definitely also the option of proposing tech certification outside the legislative process. But I just wanted to share this with the group. So probably a topic to be revisited soon, because that is definitely, as you pointed out, I'm not sure about the chances of passing this right now, but it keeps coming back, and some of the concepts in here are great. Any other comments from some of the other folks on the call? And thank you a lot, Chen. Great insight and fantastic summary. Thank you. Right, let's move on. One publication that reached us, which came out in May, from Anna Romanova, is an interesting take on elements of legislation for artificial intelligence systems. And it is a a very operational approach to this. So definitely wanted to point to this paper in the context of legislative changes here. Now, one event that I want to point to quickly is our friends from the Association for Molecular Pathology have filed a lawsuit against the FDA and challenges the final rule on the regulation of LDTs. This came out just a few days ago, and Mike Laposada announced this, and there's, I think it was in Galveston, was filed in Galveston, etc. And we can provide this, and there's several elements and components here. And some of the key elements here is that this is a lawful or unlawful agency action. I wanted to share this because the resources that are provided within this document are actually explaining laboratory developed tests and the controversy quite eloquent. I think it's over 80 pages. So no comments on whether it's good or bad, but definitely an action to look out for. And we get back to this in a second, because this also came with a phenomenal resource on the AMP website. And since we're just talking about it, maybe I find it really quick, and I just wanted to get to that report, like maybe find it in a second, but definitely a shout out to the Association for Molecular Pathology for the resource and providing the detailed explanations in their claim. One other pointer quickly to a document released by the Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality, or AHRQ, and this is the electronic test result communication of the 21st Century Cures Act, so information blocking, etc., etc. And a literature review was performed in terms of which elements of benefiting some of the 21st Century Cures Act components have had impact on these three components, so direct patient or family benefit or healthcare professional benefit, or both. And it's providing a summary over this literature review. And if you're interested in that topic, please take a look. One final notice about a so-called transitional coverage for emerging technologies came out from CMS. Now, this is part of TSET, which is a transitional coverage. So that's the acronym for this, providing an outline of what the components are if you want to get coverage through the emerging technology pathway. And it's quite detailed, but wanted to give a pointer to this because many of the criteria related to this, aside from clinical validity and clinical utility, of course, for some of the AI technologies, everyone wonders how does the coverage work, and definitely worth a look if you're working on emerging or cutting edge technologies like this. And then also related to legislation, this is just one pointer to an AI Intelligence Models Act, which is under this number filed in California. And there are currently actually 600 different, or around 600 different bills floating in the various jurisdictions around AI legislation. So that's a very, very important topic. And I just pointed to this one here because it was clear that there's some concepts in here that are not well aligned. I haven't seen a good resource that compares these various legislative resources, but again, a quick pointer to this paper about what elements should be reflected there. So definitely a huge problem to align and to understand what the different legislative tracks and vectors are pointing to how AI will be regulated. But wanted to present this from our friends in California because there were like several that emailed us whether there's some resources around it. Someone knows a resource that collects all of these, akin to the privacy law resources that we shared previously in the prior meeting. Would be great if someone can share this. Moving forward, I maybe hand it over to Noor.
Sure, thanks, Joe. Just a few quick MDIC updates. Our APF event is upcoming in about 3 weeks. So we're 3 weeks away from APF. So If you have any questions or would like to join us, please feel free to check out the link. It's pasted in the chat right now. It's going to be a very, very interesting and very people-focused event. So we're very excited for it. And it's going to be at the Hotel Washington, which is a beautiful historical hotel located in DC. So please feel free to check out the agenda is fully live, and tickets are on sale. And the next slide, Joe, if you don't mind switching, is the annual patient summit, which is happening in October. This is a completely virtual and free event. And it's just a little bit of a summit that gives an insight on patient science tools and evidence generation. Also very packed with a lot of important information. And it is an annual event. So we've had it in past years, but it was linked to APF last year. So we're excited to have it as a freestanding event this upcoming year. So please feel the agenda for that one, I believe, is also live. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or are interested in learning more about MDIC. I'm always available for a quick chat. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Noah. Thanks a lot. And yeah, maybe you can paste the links in the chat so others can do this as well. One quick pointer from our friends from CAP. There is a pathologist meeting coming up, October 19th to 22nd. I think the link will also be pasted in the chat, just a quick pointer here. Now I think I want to hand it over to Robert Tessier. Robert, are you on here?
Joe, I think he was the one that called in the number. So we need, I don't know, he's muted right now. We need him to unmute.
Oh, got it. Robert, can you unmute? Maybe that's a no. Maybe we can move forward, and if that works later, then maybe we can come back. Because I know there were quite a few pointers we wanted to make, and maybe we can move forward, and if that works with unmuting, we can come back to this. Quick pointer, interestingly, this month at least, we did not have ctDNA submissions, no cybersecurity submissions, and no diversity, equity, inclusion submissions. So maybe that's a pointer. However, there were a lot of global and EU components that were submitted, and I want to share these with you, which I thought were very interesting. One is a manifesto, a very powerful statement by a large international group actually on improving cancer care in conflict-impacted populations. I think emphasizing some of the prior and ongoing global conflicts and what happens in those regions for cancer patients, which I think is a very important topic. I have not seen work on this before, so there's definitely a pointer in this work towards the need for this. A second, which is actually a double entendre here on the AI regulation, is a letter to Nature, two actually. One, as you see here, illustrating that regulation should not stifle innovation. I think we may have all heard this in one way or another. And you see that there's sort of this quote about, everyone draws from the same historical analogies. It's actually a well-written draft, sort of a call to action. And it is coupled with a specific criticism on the Europe's AI Act, or the AI Act in Europe, where certainly some components, if I summarize, you should read this by yourself, but it basically relies on a regional or national regulation in terms of laws that would need to be written. And while some countries can, others may not. And this it's a very good portrayal of that conflict. But definitely a pointer in case you're interested in those topics. Now, at the same time, and this is a current paper that's reviewing an element that I will share in a second, which is a proposal, which is that there are trends towards global regulatory frameworks for AI. You see there's, for example, diagnosis and prevention, pharmacology, of course, and treatment, and how certain tools can help with this, and what the, let's say, scope of applications of AI in medicine could be. And related to this, there's, of course, how to navigate the European Union's AI Act. This is an NPJ digital medicine paper that outlines some of the key requirements, basically what's absolutely not allowed, and then what is definitely within, let's say, a certain level of conduct allowed, with concrete examples. So 2 pointers that I believe might be very helpful for these, let's call it, supranational initiatives. Now, one element that was shared with us that just came out, which is available for commenting, and I want to spend two minutes on it real quick. So this is a draft working document from the WHO. In essence, it works similar to draft documents from the FDA with 2 or 3 exceptions. The interaction and commenting period is usually slightly different, and you see that the comments can be submitted until the 13th of September. Now, you heard earlier, and Shannon outlined this really well. There's a tech certification program, which would mean you do something once and then you can subsequently work on other elements. Now, the WHO has something similar, and they call it pre-qualification, which would mean that for certain, let's say, good practices related to regulatory and quality management components, you would pre-qualify through this proposal pathway that would then enable national or multinational health authority approaches. In other words, streamlining for companies or for product developers acting in multinational settings, a collaborative registration process for medical products. Now, this is, in my opinion, a very ambitious and potentially extremely meaningful approach, i.e. to unify, for example, the in vitro diagnostic regulatory elements into something that might work. This is a very, very complex document. I think it's over 60 pages of very dense writing that is extremely abstract. If you ever worked on an ISO working group or with the WHO, you know they have to take into account many, many different regions and different approaches. But if you're interested in joining a discussion around this, I'm very happy to go through it with a smaller group, and maybe we can comment, because many of the components that might be related to analytic or clinical validity are probably in one way or another globally important. But I haven't seen anything similar. And the 2 prior papers, a trend towards, could there be a global regulatory framework, and or, the European Union's AI Act point in that direction. I don't know, maybe I open it up for a quick comment, or if anyone has heard or helped work on this. Not sure if there's any comments here, but I see Robert. Are you here? Are you with us?
You hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
You can. Oh, great. Okay, fine. So just want to give you a couple of quick updates on what's going on. We were very fortunate this week that we had an opportunity to speak to Kristen McDonald, who's Vice President of Advocacy at CAP. And she was able to connect us. So we were able to connect her with the co-executive director of the RBMA, Linda Wilgus, who's going to be responsible for running their operation in conjunction with the other co-executive director. And most important about the whole process, they connected on the concept of working together on advocacy and issues of MD recruitment that affect both radiology as well as pathology. And we really feel that both agree that possibly AI might be a great bridge between the 2 specialties. And I think this is the first meeting ever between the radiology business community and the pathology leadership, let's say, group. And I think they all agree that they're going to continue that dialogue because they have so many things in common. The other comment to be made quickly is the fact that we just wanted to repeat again something we might have said in the past. We've been looking at the 2024 Medicare rates, which vary significantly by location. And one of the things we've been talking about with both the radiology as well as the pathology group are that there's such a significant variance, whereas in the world of digital pathology and AI, obviously a vendor is not going to come to you and say, well, gee, you're located in Arkansas, therefore the lowest reimbursement in the country, and we're going to make a difference in what we're going to charge you for a scanner or any other particular piece of paraphernalia. And so the difference is that there's 168% variation in the country between places like San Diego and places like Arkansas relative to what the technical reimbursements are, and 143% difference in what the professional reimbursements are. So we've been talking about how that's going to affect the future of certain reimbursements of activity. We also wanted to mention that we have finally finished our digital pathology toolkit about making the business case for digital pathology. And as a result of that, and a really nice introduction by Dr. Hattab, who's the chair at Louisville, our next activity in terms of digital pathology is getting involved with AI applications. So our plan is to study and talk to about 10 different companies who are doing AI applications and learn more about what their rationale is, and ultimately whatever information they can provide us in terms of the possibility of increasing clinical accuracy and what the implications might be of increasing clinical accuracy for purposes of numbers that pertain to the ROI. So we're just beginning to start that research process. Got a good cooperation from a lot of the companies that are doing AI, and we look forward to reporting that probably in the next 2 or 3 months.
Fantastic. I know that there's the RBMA Founders
yeah.
Day. You could say something about that too?
Well, I want to say something about that briefly because Linda Wilgos was able to pull together Dr. Zeke Silva. Dr. Zeke Silva is the first radiologist ever to chair the AMA RUC, and he's going to be giving a presentation tomorrow to the Radiology Business Managers Association. I've asked Linda if she's able to get a hold of the presentation, the recording, and the slides, and if she's willing to share them with me, and then I could give them to you folks at PIcc and let him tell you a little bit behind the scenes of how the RUC functions and how they make their decisions. And I think that's going to be very important. We'll also be sharing the same information with the CAP Economic Affairs Committee as it relates to developing the new digital pathology codes.
Thank you, Robert. It's really, I mean, I hope I speak on behalf of this entire group. It's really very, very important and commendable what you do for the field and of course also for AI and digital pathology. So briefly, this is the cover of the toolkit that you shared with us, and I will, of course, it will go on the website. And I just wanted to briefly point out to the, you mentioned that Dr. Hattab put a little, a beautifully written forward to it. And, one of the things that, I think it's important if you have a moment to read through this paragraph here, that, there's some initial cost, but also an ongoing and maintenance cost needed. I thought it was very, very thoughtful. And, I think, as you pointed out, just in this brief update here, you touch upon, vision, clear reality, the business case, as well as, providing tools and a vision forward regarding AI. So definitely a big applause and high five from this group here to PNPL. And I think it's great synergy, and please keep moving forward. I don't know if people have an interest, there's definitely, since we're under antitrust monitoring, we had to parse this section here down. Maybe, Robert, you can say a few things, because of course there's much more data behind this, right? This is just a large oversimplification.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I would also say that even though you talk about antitrust or whatever, these numbers are all published by Medicare.
Sure.
And all we did at PNPL basically was take a look at every single Medicare MAC area in the country, and we looked at what the reimbursements were for professional services and technical services, and we were just absolutely astounded to find out that there was this wide variation. And realistically, the information is broken down by the top 4 CPT codes, starting with 88305, 7, and also the immunos. And the information is available, and we'd be more than happy to share the specific schedule with the folks at PIcc. And you can distribute it or however you want to do it. But it's pretty sad that basically when you have a pathologist who's talking to you in Arkansas or Mississippi and is looking to try to engage in the possibility of a digital pathology and AI arrangement, and obviously their numbers are significantly less than they are in San Jose, California, and other places that are much more well served, let's say.
I think it's a very important, probably overlooked topic, and I think it's very, very helpful. So please, if someone's interested in this, I don't know if there's plans to publish it. I think that's something that I could
Your
definitely.
iPad, we have 15 minutes. I didn't.
Oh. I could see, you know, journals like the archives or, you know, some other journals that touch a large group of practicing pathologists that would be very interested in this type of data. Okay, thank you, Robert. And thanks for, oh, sorry, there was another comment.
No, I was just going to say that we're more than happy to share the information we have with you folks. And again, some of this research is work that we're doing that should be benefiting the entire community, not just simply our membership. And we're more than happy to provide that information to you folks.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
All right,
you.
we move forward to patient advocacy. And one element, of course, as you know, Friends of Cancer Research have been with PIcc or PIcc from the beginning. And, you know, they do a lot of research as well as policy work and advocacy as well as regulatory science. So I'm looking for Brittany. Is she here? Hey, Brittany, great seeing you. Can I hand it over to you?
Yes, absolutely. I just had a few slides here. I know I've previously shared to this group about Friends workflow and our harmonization efforts, but wanted to share a few brief updates and a little bit more in depth than my kind of summative comments on previous calls. And for those that are visual, just a few slides. We're Friends of Cancer Research. We're a nonprofit organization in DC to really support science and regulatory policy to help promote safe and effective therapies for patients, getting to them in a timely manner, and really kind of our goal is to serve as a convener to connect multi-stakeholder collaboration and research partnerships to support this mission. And so on the next slide, Joe, our digital pathology project is our latest research partnership in our diagnostics portfolio. We have our TMB and our HRD previous efforts that came from a white paper that we published last September on supporting digital and computational pathology and oncology drug development. And so this research partnership, the goal is to understand what factors are potentially contributing to variability in biomarker assessment across different computational pathology platforms, and start to understand what performance metrics as well as reference data sets can be used to support improved evaluation and alignment. We're doing this in HER2 and breast cancer due to the evolving treatment landscape with ADCs as well as the availability of specimens. We're working with Roberto Salgado and his group in Belgium, who has provided over 1,000 breast cancer whole slide images. We have both H&E and IHC whole slide images that we then have distributed to different model developers to analyze HER2 status. We have 10 different models that are participating. They analyzed the whole slide images and then returned data for us as far as the HER2 status and other metrics that they compute and were able to provide. We're working with the NCI Biometric Research Division, who is using a statistical analysis plan that our working group collaboratively wrote and agreed on to compare the models to understand concordance and, again, those factors that may be contributing to discordance, and then working to align on key findings. As you see in the check marks, we've completed those first two, and we're currently working through all of the results and really working towards that last bullet there about what are our key findings and what next steps can we take from this. And so on the next couple of slides, I just have a very broad overview for those interested of the type of analyses we are conducting, primarily looking at our HER2 categorical scores, so those 0, 1 plus, 2 plus, 3 plus that pathologists use. We have 7 models there that provide those scores, and so understanding concordance, and you can see the different types of statistics that we're looking at, both overall and pairwise concordance. And then we have several different secondary exploratory analyses. Firstly, trying to understand if there's any patient, specimen, or model attributes that may explain some of the variability that we're seeing across the different models. We also do have 3 pathologists that have provided their HER2 scoring, and so we're looking at concordance between models and pathologists. And then lastly, on those right 2 boxes are understanding that a lot of these models don't just put out those categorical scores, but they have other outputs such as quantitative, continuous scores, H scores, as well as other types of outputs like ultra low, low, etc. And so conducting analyses to understand concordance across all of those different. And so on the next slide, you'll just simply see all of the different models and kind of where they fall for all those different analyses that I just described. As I noted, 10 different models overall that participated and provided data, but you can see the differences and what outputs each model provides. I think in and of itself just shows that there's variability in what these models are contributing and where alignment may be needed in the future, but also gives us right possibility to conduct various different analyses there. And so then my last slide that I had was just showing that this really is a broad group that is working through this, that we can't do this without, again, not just our 10 model developers who are actively participating and contributing data, but these are all of our larger working group members that attend our calls, that provide feedback, their thoughts on the data, and then will help to work for us to work through and find conclusions. And so again, just want to thank you all for being a venue that we can hopefully continue to share results and the findings that we find from this project to help make sure that our efforts are synergistic and help to influence everyone's efforts in this space.
Thank you for this very quick overview and all the work that you're doing. Maybe we open it quickly up for a few questions, because this slide alone illustrates so many of the variables and approaches that can be taken to analyze this data set. I don't know if there's questions from the group or any comments here.
I have a question. I'm Eric Kaljan from Raresight. Does this HER2 study, which is very interesting to me, does it include immunofluorescence, in particular quantitative immunofluorescence, as well as IHC?
We do not have that looking at immunofluorescence. I guess we have largely most of the models use the IHC. We have a few that use H&E only, looking at H&E staining, but we don't have any models that are participating with immunofluorescence.
Thank you.
Probably mostly related to the ground truth, I believe, because I think there are many other approaches. I heard from some labs doing qPCR for more quantitative, or of course there's FISH, but very
And I
interesting.
think again speaks to just that this is that there is a lot of variability, and even as we've had discussions of what is ground truth, do you use a pathologist? Joe, to your point, do you have other types of orthogonal methodologies? And I think this will continue to be a question as we're starting to understand what these technologies can do and how best to validate and evaluate their performance.
And I believe the initial data will be presented in San Antonio, if
We're hoping. We haven't heard back yet. We have submitted an
got it.
abstract, but yes, that is the hope. And Friends will also plan to have a public meeting in February of next year to share the full results. But as always, feel free to look. I think Dor put our website in the chat, or feel free to reach out. We're not meant ever to gatekeep this information, and would love to hear other thoughts and have participation on our ongoing work streams.
Thank you. No, thanks a lot. One paper maybe related to some of the points you mentioned. I wanted to quickly do a pointer again related to, in this case, trastuzumab deruxtecan is from the group here. I think this was presented last month, but one of the graphs here which shows the 0, 1, 2, 3 plus in relation to the best response. And that's like just in terms of like variability, in this case, of course, not across models, but just across response patterns to various, let's call it IHC groups. And you can sort this data probably differently. And, I think I just wanted to point out again that this issue about reliable detection of the right patient subgroups probably will continue for a while. Here's the slide that I wanted to, or let me just stop right there. Any other comments or questions for Brittany?
I guess the only other thing I might just bring up is some of the work that David Rim has done in his, very methodical approach to quantitation. And I wonder whether there's some way to correlate what your ultimate results might be with some of those results. At least in my humble opinion, I think that's probably the closest to a ground truth that I've seen yet, given the fact that it's so hard to come up with really good standards for the amount of HER2 that's present in the absence of things like cell lines and so on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And David's been involved with some of our previous efforts around TMB, and we've kept him in the loop with this work. And so I think absolutely trying to make sure that there's synergies there with all of his foundational work that he has done in this space.
Yeah,
I know that there's one, I believe, a 510K approved reference cell standard, also including HER2. So, I mean, some of the tools are available that absolutely not accepted as ground truth, but they're available. I don't know details, but I can pull it up. I think it was granted to Boston Cell Standards, and I don't know if there's another, but those are beats, and they have, I think, high, mid, and low, if I recall correctly. But I can provide that maybe next month. But it is definitely going to be tricky to identify sort of a true ground truth when it comes to HER2. Great comments, Eric. Thank you so much. Quick pointer. I added this here because it's advocacy. This is the AMP Resource Center on the FDA final rule. So there's definitely, I mean, this is only the top screenshot from their page. There's actually a lot of elements provided here. So definitely wanted to provide this pointer to the link here. Moving forward, and then we should have some time in the end for additional questions. A few resources to share. One is a regulatory affairs training program that's offered by Duke. Several people emailed about this. It's a 6-week program, and I believe one section here is specifically dedicated also to devices and studies around that. So I believe that that's probably one of the programs. There's others, please share those with us. The second part here is also in the resource section. This is from the American Society of Investigative Pathology, in an editorial on generative AI and the impact on external review of scientific manuscripts. So please check this out. And then one other resource that I want to quickly show you, because it's very, very important. So you may have seen this name, Brandon O'Leary, before. He was, I think, with the agency for about over 10 years. I forgot exactly. But we have had many discussions about PCCP. So this is how the FDA is currently thinking about managing changing controls plans under predetermined conditions. So this is basically online learning, etc. And this particular blog post on Brandon's homepage, which is, by the way, also a phenomenal resource, please check that out too, is that he goes through how the labeling, how the notification and performance requirements are tracked. There's beautiful illustrations that illustrate this. And there's basically how do you find these, through searches, as well as, an overview over how many PCCPs in which fields. For example, you see there's radiology almost leading this. And, other elements here, not quite there, but there's one, I think, in clinical chemistry in General Hospital. And then comes, of course, the devices. When you find the device, how to track it and identify then with link here specifically how that works. So, for example, irregular rhythm notification failure, in the cardiology field. And you see here's, for example, one in pathology. And, that is, I believe, a great example. Here's one, in pathology from some of the vendors probably on the call. And you see, this is, I believe, a phenomenal resource, especially when you're interested in these, let's call it predetermined change control plans. So definitely a quick pointer here to this phenomenal resource. So if you know Brandon, please say hi. I don't know, he's definitely not on the call today, but I just wanted to point that out as a resource. Now, publications. And of course, there's a lot. I selected them as they came in. There's probably a few more that I just didn't have time to go through. So this is a shorter list than last month. So definitely apologize if that paper that you submitted has not been mentioned here. Nature Genetics published this amazing paper entitled Genetic Factors Associated with Reasons for Clinical Trial Stoppage. Now, there's data used about, I think it was related to a COVID pandemic. The data was collected and then analyzed, and then there's interesting traits that they develop. So if you're into trial enrollment and factors, that's definitely of interest. This is a paper in the Annals of Oncology, so really one of the top-notch journals about AI for predictive biomarker discovery in immuno-oncology. So this shows you an overview over some of the components. So this is related to, how to identify a biomarker and how to get that towards drug development, etc. So definitely also a very important resource. This is a paper from the group of Faisal Mahmood from, Harvard and MGB. In this case, they present a tool called a Madeleine, and that is a multi-stain pre-training model to represent slides if you have multiple different stains. So, for example, H&E, ER, PR, etc., HER2 again. And this was just published, I think, as a preprint. And so hopefully we see this published soon, but I definitely wanted to provide a pointer. A landscape review article on real-world evidence to support regulatory submissions. Definitely, we spoke about several times about real-world data and real-world evidence, and I know that there's many of you interested in this topic, and this is trying to summarize this. This is a paper on an intelligent or an AI-enhanced digital urine cytology solution for bladder cancer. And one of the key findings here, which I thought was very well done, is that there was an efficiency gain in terms of screening and time to diagnosis, which of course is a very important clinical measure. In this Nature Communications paper, there's a group who developed a histopathology-based algorithm, deep learning algorithm, for patient pre-screening for clinical trials. Now, a lot of people, when talking to, let's say, folks that are interested in the finance around digital pathology, here the question is answered in a way that, the different components of a clinical trial site, as well as a central lab, and a cloud-based potential pre-screening of patients for trials. And they apply this as a potential solution to not only justify, but to really apply digital pathology in this sense. I thought this was a great paper, very well done, and fantastic figures. So definitely an interesting, let's say, add-on to how digital pathology might unlock some of the functions or streamline some of the functions that otherwise are done by snail mail. in this NPJ precision oncology paper, and this from Inti Slovak's group, this is outlining the current landscape of spatial biomarkers for prediction response in immune checkpoint inhibitors. And interesting, Eric just mentioned the point about immunofluorescence. You see here in one of the figures, they really illustrate the various technologies that are currently spatially or enable spatial resolvement of these biomarker status. So this is a review article in this journal, so that's fairly rare, and it's very well done. And I'm just showing one figure, so definitely worth a look. One paper that reached us, which I wanted to put up towards the end, because I thought it was at first I thought, I'm not sure if this fits to this group, but this is a case report of 2 cases, I believe, that shows how skull trauma and probably brain tumors were treated in ancient Egypt. So definitely worth a read if you find the time. A paper with the last author, Hardeep Singh, who of course is working with AHRQ, and here the issue of climate or ecologic impact of many aspects is coming up. I know we presented a study by Peter Bohr before on the ecologic impact or carbon footprint of AI models. And when you read through these 3 points, just quickly, that of course the diagnosis should be made timely and use the fewest resources possible. And here resources are of course meant in the context of climate. And then, low value care, such as overtesting and overdiagnosis, might contribute to unnecessary greenhouse gas emissions, as well as then, of course, achieving higher quality care. I believe these are very well aligned with, the so-called value-based care models. So definitely worth a read. And I believe that this topic will be of tremendous impact moving forward, especially as AI becomes more and more pervasive, and thereby, of course, contributes to this important aspect. 2 additional points. This paper here is providing a generalist vision language foundation model across multiple domains, phenomenal work published in Nature Medicine. And the overall approach on how to portray and how to synergize across multiple different domains is definitely important. And then a last paper, you may have seen this ginormous effort. You see just from the amount of receipt of the version from 2022 till the acceptance. So this is 2,000 colorectal cancers. I believe probably the most comprehensive genomic study so far. I believe this is probably one of the elements that we see over the next couple of probably months or years, that most cancers will actually be analyzed at the genomic scale, not just the exomic scale, and then multidimensional, of course, methylation profiling, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely worth a read if you're working on colorectal cancers. That was sort of the overview real quick. There were a few pointers to other events. We will add those on the website. I know there was one that multiple people told me about because there's a phenomenal welcome reception apparently planned. And, one of the people I believe who's on the call, pulled this up here. Keith, big shout out to you. There's a breakfast session with you. I don't know if you want to give us a bit of a prelude about what you're gonna talk about here, but yeah, definitely. Hi, Keith.
Sure. Really quick, I think, well, just by background, I'm a developmental biologist, so I like to draw a lot of parallels with evolution. But if you look at the pace of FDA clearances in this space, up to the early part of 2024 is pretty, quiet, one every year or two. But there've been, over 6 of these since just the first half of this year. So I was hoping to, again, this is a sponsored talk, so not going to say I'm pitching anything, but I'm going to kind of summarize a lot of the data that's come out of, and try to synthesize some of the data that's come out of all these clearances and what it says about where we're going with future clearances. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
No, of course, and the point here is of course, I mean, this is API. I know a lot of you are members of API, and I think there are other groups that have meetings as well. Happy to announce those, and if you want to place something here, please let us know. We just can't cover like commercial things because of the antitrust monitoring. All right, that leaves us with some time to open it up for questions or comments or suggestions. Anyone? Right, I hear nothing here. Just checking the chat here real quick. Thanks, Noor, for pasting all the links. And I think I heard in the beginning that we try to get all the materials, etc., up on the website in the near future. So hopefully we can share that quickly with you. All right. Thank you very much for joining, and thanks for doing this 1 week early. Hope to see some of you in Japan at the JSDP meeting. If not, hope to see you at the end of next month.
Thanks, Joe and team, for everything you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith.